I've always had a fascination with internet celebrities, especially those tied to 4chan culture in some way. Figures like Anthony Fantano and Boogie2988 have long-standing ties to the boards, browsing them in their youth and later distancing themselves from the community. But one of the lesser discussed individuals with a history on the more anime-centric side of things is someone who has also recently become extremely popular. Nyanners is a YouTuber with more than 1 million subscribers, being one of the most popular Western virtual YouTubers, a genre consisting of live streamers voicing animated characters, which are rigged to their real bodies with motion capture technology.
You turned off the fire spread! It's okay, I can do this forever.
While most of the people following Nyanners today only know her for her streams and VTuber videos, what many of these people likely don't realize is just how long she's been on the internet. She has a decade-long history online, and in that time has picked up a number of people in her audience who accuse her of being conniving and opportunistic, especially following a recent drama with YouTuber Nuxtaku. But that story has already been widely covered, including by myself. Instead of talking about anything more recent, I am going to look into her past to examine why Nyanners left the boards behind, and if any of the criticisms levied at her by her former fans are justified. Sometime in the late 2000s, Nyanners was drawn to 4chan. By her own account, she saw it as a place for those who didn't belong anywhere else, and as a result, wanted to search out a sense of belonging through the site. After becoming acclimated to the culture, she later realized that her interest in voice acting could be combined with some of their inside jokes. The Nyanners channel was created on April 7th, 2011, with its first video published later that day. Titled Stapler-san, it was a short, 27-second long narration of an explicit manga. That was her original gimmick, reading bizarre hentai with a distinctly young anime girl voice. While this alone probably wouldn't get attention nowadays, back then the internet was starved for barely passable voice acting. Even fewer was the pool of people willing to use their talent for, well, this.
Hooray! With this, Sensei will see how smart and talented I am. He might even give me a kiss.
So Nyanners filled a niche, and as a result, her channel took off with a running start. Within 1 year, her videos accumulated over 3 million views, as she now sat at over 17,000 subscribers. She became known as very approachable, taking the time to answer every message that she received. As a result, she also befriended a handful of other creators and did collaborations for pay, some of these amounting to appearances in some very large-scale projects. One example of this was her appearance as a slime in Basher vs. Minecraft series, The Legend of Hobo.
Convenient.
Outside of these appearances, she also had a circle of those she worked with more frequently. Her closest collaborators at the time appeared to be musician Ken Ashcorp and fellow voice actor Lily Pichu. The three worked on various projects together, with Nyanners even set to star in a secret project of the former that never released. And though she found some success on YouTube, what many would refer to as normies were hardly her target audience. Instead, the channel was specifically tailored for 4chan's anime board, with many of the comics she dubbed being inside jokes on the site. Even the name, Nyanners, was conceived during a 4chan raid. According to her, she began browsing the site when she was as young as 11, and spent most of her adolescent years lurking. This early exposure desensitized her to the site's content, and led her to develop a very edgy sense of humor. While many jokes could be seen as defensible, unfortunately this leads us to perhaps the most controversial aspect of her past.
Twist niggard, head off niggard, sucking stink niggard.
I know she just said the gamer word, but if you know me, then I'd be the last person to take issue with that. Instead, this touches on another facet of the Nyanners brand. If you are familiar with board culture at all, especially on the more anime side of things, you'll understand that many posters are unabashed lolicons. For the uninitiated, loli is hentai depicting characters that resemble little girls. I'm not going to talk about the subject here in depth, but as you can imagine, it's a very controversial sect of the anime community. Nyanners, either out of personal interest or to appeal to their tastes, played into it a lot. That clip you just heard was her self-titled loli voice, which she did for laughs on the site.
Have a great day, Anonymous.
But the most infamous song would be a song parody she uploaded on February 21st, 2012, called Pomf Pomf Pomf.
I guess instead, what are we going to do on the bed? Oh no, oh no. Pop, pop, kimochi. What's this sticky stuff on me? Play with me until I smell like salty coins and milk.
Directly based on a lolly doujin, The lyrics are pretty repulsive, as she describes Oni-chan's genitals, orgasming, and a lot of other stuff I don't want to repeat. And yet, despite the inherent disgust, it went on to become one of her most popular videos. Within 2 months, it had accumulated nearly 500,000 views, and would go on to peak at over 2 million. Many also allege that at the time, she posted a number of custom sexual audios to the boards. The simple fact is that there were a lot of people either ironically or genuinely interested in lolly-based content. And she, as someone who had the ability to exaggerate her voice and make it sound more childlike, was happy to fill that void. For someone who'd only been on the platform for a year, she had very explosive growth. And regardless of how repulsive the content may be to the average person, it seemed that the trajectory of her channel was poised upwards. However, the same demographic that initially gave her career life would eventually be the one to hinder it. Because of her proximity to 4chan, Nyanners got a lot of targeted harassment. From posts threatening sexual assaults to the spreading of fake nudes, it was difficult for her to ignore. She became distant, no longer motivated to interact as much with her audience. Bear in mind that throughout all of this, Nyanners was just beginning college, having been 18 the year she joined YouTube. The added stress of dealing with internet rumors was something she didn't need, admitting as much in an old blog post. "Rumors about me keep growing, and I feel so helpless. I try to do things to clear up misunderstandings, but it only makes it worse. I'll always be nothing but an attention seeker in most people's eyes. I'm worthless. There's nothing I can do. People say that this is the kind of stuff you just have to deal with when you get a tiny bit popular. Does it ever feel any better than this?" Things would only intensify after she participated in V's community-run Game Awards for 2011. The event was controversial due to its over-reliance on e-celebs, which many felt ran contrary to the site's anonymous nature. Following the ceremony, trolls began flagging her videos with false copyright takedowns, resulting in her YouTube channel being terminated entirely. Thankfully for her, it was restored within a few weeks. But this was the first taste of just how far some were willing to go. And clearly, that stuck with her. Nyanners began to distance herself from the site, drifting instead towards Tumblr and the radically different culture there. To say that she was going somewhere new by moving to Tumblr would be an understatement. Tumblr, at the time, was diametrically opposed to 4chan, with the communities often discussing their hatred of the respective counterpart. This led her to disavow much of her old content, even deleting the aforementioned lolicon anthem in February of 2015. I took down Pomp 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 for good. It's the worst video I've ever made, and I've never really liked it or how it garnered the attention of a lot of unsavory types of people who make me very uncomfortable. And it's just plain gross and offensive most of all. I made the song parody when I was 16 and ignorant. It was meant to satirize a horrible delusion that became an unfunny meme at the time, and not meant to be some kind of shitty internet lolicon anthem at all. It doesn't matter if they're just cartoons, they're children, and that's that. I'm not going to argue about it. If anyone has a problem with me taking the video down, feel free to unsubscribe. I am so happy that I finally got rid of that piece of trash. Some of the audience that remained from her, I guess we can say, edgier days were, of course, extremely upset. She had previously profited entirely from that content, and they saw her disavowal of them as an ungrateful backstab. Discussions across several websites proclaimed her a social justice warrior who gave into political correctness. It didn't help that she also pissed off the Gamergate crowd when she posted a number of comments being critical of the movement. But it seems that Tumblr wasn't overly receptive of her either. One user commented that it may have been unintentional, but going from making unbearable, ironic wank videos for the worst 4chan posters to this is the only funny thing ever related to Nyanners. Additionally, some details didn't seem to line up. She claimed to have been 16 at the time it was made, when her channel originally stated she was 18. It's speculated by some that this discrepancy was a lie to claim that she was more naive than she actually was. Regardless, such a glaring inconsistency has the ability to make a supposed apology feel very disingenuous, possibly explaining its poor initial reception. Shortly after the post was made, she was sent an anonymous message stating, "There isn't enough space here to offer a rebuttal, but I will say that you haven't grown up or matured nearly as much as you seem to think you have. Your mind is just being warped by a different kind of propaganda. You are still pandering for validation. She rebutted by insisting that it wasn't pandering and calling them a conspiracy theorist. To this day, many attribute this decision as nothing more than a career move. That she saw the tides turning, with edgy content being shunned and more PC content being framed in a positive light, and changed her direction to be more marketable. While I think that self-preservation in that way likely played a part, it's not entirely fair to cite this as the sole reason, because there was another specific series of events that undoubtedly influenced her, one that I feel most have overlooked. Let's take a step all the way back to 2011. Before she had a Tumblr, Nyanners used to write on a blog hosted by WordPress. It was her place to vent about school, family, and other personal subjects. Unfortunately, in sharing these intimate details, several stalkers were eventually able to connect the dots and uncover her real-life identity. Now, this is where the story gets a bit hazy, because there's little documentation about what exactly transpired. But bear with me. The story goes that after being doxxed, trolls began to harass her entire family. It started with threatening texts and phone calls, but got much worse. Prior, Nyanners had written about a deeply traumatic experience from her childhood. When she was only 5 years old, her 12-year-old sister passed away. Trolls weaponized this information, taunting the family with reminders of the past. It allegedly escalated to the point that someone even desecrated her sister's grave in real life before publishing photos of the act. While most of this cannot be verified, I was able to locate a conversation Nyanners had with a troll at the time. They call her an attention seeker, claim that she exploited her sister's death, and gloat about her information being spread all over 4chan's anime board. With all of that in mind, it should make a lot more sense why she distanced herself from the site. This isn't the 4chan bad video, but let's not act as if this behavior was totally out of the ordinary for the time. It's likely she already knew this, given the fact that she was spending so much time on the boards, but being on the receiving end likely changed her perspective and forced her to critically re-examine the association. Around this time, she even stopped talking to once acquaintances, with Lily Pichu no longer in contact with her by 2014. On February 13th, 2015, Nyanners wrote a lengthy post reflecting on her involvement with the site. It was very unhealthy for me. I was taken advantage of a lot from when I was 13 up until 17 by guys I met who browsed the boards. 4chan was like my home for a little while when I was little. That's so fucked up in hindsight. My parents would have killed me if they saw the kinds of stuff I was looking at and reading, because I felt like an outcast, and all of these people on 4chan were self-described outcasts, so I felt I fit in there. But as I grew and made friends who were actually nice people and cared about me, I realized that I didn't have to put on an act anymore. Surrounding yourself with people who love you, for you, is the best thing ever. Following the initial campaign against her, Nyanners drifted towards more socially acceptable content. Her output consisted mainly of ASMR and novelty covers, such as the ones she did of Anaconda and Gucci Gang, which sat at 8 and 5 million views respectively. While these videos found some success, her actual notoriety seemed to stagnate. She had a loyal audience, but fell into the rut many YouTubers do after their initial growth. Her attempts at professional voice acting ventures also seems to be dead ends. The fans turned critics derided her for this, gloating that she'd never be a voice actor and was doomed to fade into irrelevance. And for a while, they seemed to be correct. That is, until 2020. VTubers are computer-generated characters who imitate the role of influencers. While the concept has existed for decades, in recent years, it's become especially popular due to the close association with anime. The first notable example of a modern VTuber was AI Kazuna, the first person to truly combine the concept with live streaming. 1 year later, a group of similar characters was established called HoloLive, which exploded in popularity in 2019. Nyanners had experimented with the idea before, always opting to use virtual webcams when she streamed. She had used models of various anime characters for several years, but because they weren't her own, it didn't get much attention. That all changed on July 17th, 2020, when she debuted an original custom avatar.
Oh, everybody! yeah. My final form is complete.
This surprisingly simple change proved to be a game changer, leading her to see massive growth almost immediately. Her very first stream with the avatar would quickly gather over 1,000 viewers, something she'd never done before. By the end of the month, she reached 100,000 followers on Twitch. 3 months after that, the number doubled. This momentum caught the eye of the newly established VShojo, one of the first US-based VTuber organizations. Nyanners was brought on as a founding member, where she remains as one of their most popular talents. Now, with over 1 million YouTube subscribers, a loyal fanbase, and even figurines on the way, it's clear that those who thought she'd fade into irrelevance were very wrong. In November of 2020, she posted a tweet chain thanking everyone for the support. Just a few months ago, I felt very lost, and like there wasn't much to look forward to. And now I've had more energy than I've had in years. It's like night and day when I compare now and then. I could never have imagined that there would be this many people cheering for me, or that I would feel this happy, or meet this many new friends. I'm so thankful to be here and to have persevered, even when things felt hopeless. Nyanners had found herself a new community, with new collaborators and a new audience. But this also meant a lot of scrutiny, as her past would once again be brought into question. As time has gone on, the discussion around lollies has only gotten more and more taboo, so it's no wonder that despite her disavowal half a decade ago, many still criticize Nyanners for ever having made those videos. While she has gone so far as to ban the word from her Discord entirely, it's been argued that her character resembles a lolly and that she is still pandering to that demographic. Nyanners' character was designed way back in 2012, when she was still creating lolly-centric videos. Given this, and the fact that her humor still heavily revolves around comedic lewdness, it does come across as pretty hypocritical. As one Redditor puts it, if you're upset that you post pedo bait and end up attracting pedos, and then later start streaming as a child avatar on a platform famous for titty streamers, while marketing yourself to the same fanbase that grew you initially when you posted more egregious bait, then whoop-de-doo. You played yourself. Nyanners also intentionally obfuscates her age, resulting in famous birthdays hilariously listing her as being 14 years old. Many fans profess having no idea how old she even is, which could be interpreted as an attempt to appear younger. For the record, Nyanners is likely close to 30. For a time, many were probably proud of her for dropping the lolly-type content, considering her harsh words for those who enjoyed it, and direct criticism for those who fetishized minors. It makes sense that she would want to move on. Despite her past, many likely saw her disavowal of Pomp-Pomp-Chan as admirable. But today, upon actually watching her content, it becomes clear that she's still using what could, at the very most charitable, be described as a lolly-esque avatar, while also making a number of sexual jokes and innuendos.
Even now, if you go to her Discord server, the word lolly is banned. And yet, her content has remained the same. Even since 2015 when she made that post, she has continued to make lolly-voiced music, the lolly-voiced shitposts, and now, a lolly-based VTuber character and persona. Despite clearly having a problem with lollies, she has continued to this day to make her entire internet career revolve around that personality and aesthetic. And I don't see how the problems she had with the Pomp video are that much different from anything you can find on her stream today.
I was worried that it would be too big, but it fits perfectly. Please don't take that out of context. Welcome to my fart fetish stream. Poo poo pee pee. Haha, funny monkey. Is Pepto-Bismol a sauce? Oh no, I just flooded my hole. So much liquid just flowed in. Cute anime girl sleeping ASMR. I'm horny.
This is something that upon learning about her history, I was very critical of, even outside of my own distaste for her content. In this thread speculating that she could be the most hated VTuber, the users discuss her past on 4chan and why they feel she hasn't really changed. They argue that ultimately, she has the same interests and sense of humor, but now has a filter. Nyanners hasn't changed, she's doing the same shit she was doing back in 2011, just with less slurs and with a lolly avatar, but is somehow more sexual. I personally see her as this gross amalgamation of her 2011 persona mixed with her 2015 meltdown. I guarantee she's hating every minute of this, but is sucking it up because of the constant flow of cash. Maybe this take is a bit too harsh, a bit too one-sided. After all, it's unlikely that inconsistency with most people comes down to malicious intent. Rather, it could be something she merely fell into. Hypocrisy is rarely something knowingly participated in. However, others will often excuse her actions, saying that her more lewd jokes are just that, jokes, and not meant to be taken seriously or to appeal to those interests in any way. Nyanners' appeal is definitely in part the edgy and cringy humor, and she does show a lot of insecurity and some two-facedness in some situations. At least what I gathered is that her sexually suggestive things are aimed to be humorous because of the dynamic of a very perverse but shy person failing to maintain a veneer of purity. In context of the culture of edgy humor around anime content back then, I'd say she wasn't attempting to bait people's attention, but many unironically took a liking to the video. Everyone knows true lolicons are trash, so she didn't want that shit and her to be associated without context of just being an anime-themed edgelord. Think these aspects are overlooked in all of this coverage thus far. Shit is outdated cringe, highly unlikely she supports lolicons or adopts the avatar to engage them specifically. While today, Nyanners is hardly as explicit as she once was, and perhaps detestable as she was back then, she seems to have found her own happy middle ground between plausible deniability and actual lolly content. On one hand, she's disavowed her older stuff like Pomp Pomp Chan, meaning on the surface she's defensible, but on the other, her character she's currently using, combined with the frequently sexual comments, make her position kind of questionable. It really muddies the waters. Did she even care in the first place? If she was so disgusted by that kind of content originally, why profit from a more palatable iteration of it to this day? Truly, it is hard to say, and if she has some other explanation, I'm sure it's one many would be interested in hearing. But, at least for now, many speculate that she would rather ignore her more unsavory past while profiting from the parts of it that are convenient for her current circumstances. I've been Turkey Tom, thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.